Hey y'all, you're tuned in to Back Porch Cooking and Reminiscing. I'm Roger, and we're glad that y'all stopped in to watch one of our videos today.
Yeah. Porch boards sway in a slow rhythm. Got the screen door sighing a low hum. That old wood stove is cooking something good. Smell of bacon filling up the neighborhood.
So today we're going to be doing a real poor man's breakfast that came from the Appalachian Hills, and hope y'all will enjoy this recipe. So what we're going to be making is called poor man's gravy, or it's also known as slap-by gravy. And then we're going to be doing a 3-ingredient drop biscuit to go with it. A little history before we get started on slap-by gravy. And where that came from was the Great Depression, when meat was very scarce and the cook would just fry up a few pieces of bacon, because again, there wasn't enough to go around to everybody. So they'd fry up that little bit of bacon and use the bacon grease to create the gravy. So since you didn't get a piece of meat on your plate, it was called slap by because you just slapped by the meat and got the gravy and the biscuit. And it was also said that another way that it got its name was because you could slap it by the stove in just a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and you'd have your gravy made. All right, y'all, so let's get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our drop biscuits. To make our 3-ingredient drop biscuits, what we've got here is I've got a stick of butter that I've melted in the microwave. Of course, back in the day, they didn't have a microwave, so they had to melt it on the stove, but luckily we've got some conveniences. So we've got our 1 stick of butter, and to that we're going to add 1 cup of buttermilk. Now, and what we hope is going to happen is that cold buttermilk will cause that butter to kind of form some lumps, which is exactly what it's doing. So we're just going to mix that up a little bit until that gets all incorporated. All right. Now we're going to take that, and we've got 2 cups of our white lily self-rising flour. And we're going to take this buttermilk mixture and we're just going to pour that into the flour. And like I say, you want it to clump up like it's doing. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. All right. And then we're just going to start stirring on that. So now we're just going to mix this up. And again, these are drop biscuits, so we're not going to pat them out or do anything like that with them. So you want your dough to be kind of thick and sticky and wet. So that's basically what we want it to look like. And now we're going to start putting them in our skillet. All right, y'all, so our cast iron skillet with our butter in it is preheated and the butter's bubbling. We're just going to get us some spoonfuls and we're just going to drop them in there. That's why it's called drop biscuits. And you can push it off with your finger there if you want to. And you're just going to fill your skillet up with the biscuit dough. And the biscuits are sizzling as I'm putting them in here. And that is basically what you want them to look like. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put those in this 350-degree oven and let them bake. Y'all, our biscuits are about halfway through the cooking process, so let's go ahead and get started on making our gravy. So what we've got is a 1/4 cup of bacon grease. We're going to let that grease get a little hot. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our 1/4 cup of White Lily self-rising flour in there. And then we're just going to take us a whisk. We're going to mix that flour all around with that bacon grease. Now again, y'all got to remember, this is something that they made back in the day when they just didn't have anything else, but they still needed to feed everybody. So this is the kind of gravy and biscuits that folks would make back in those days. So we're making a roux here. Now the difference with this roux and other roux that you may have seen me make before is that this roux is going to be a dark roux, and it's going to be about the color of an old penny. So when we get to that stage, then I'll come back and show you that. But before we go from this one, I'm going to add some salt. And we're going to add some pepper to it. And now you can come back and add more salt or more pepper. Just don't add too much to start with, because you can't take it away. All right, so now we're starting to get that browning on the roux, so it won't be too long before we'll have it the color that we want it to be. All right, y'all, so this is the color we want our roux to be. And now something I usually say, but I didn't this time, is when you're doing this roux, you've got to stay with it and you got to keep stirring it. That's where the biggest mistake is made, is with not keeping your roux stirred, and then you get burnt roux and you have to start all over again. All right, y'all, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour in, this is hot water, and it's 2 cups. Now this is when people didn't have milk or didn't have the money to buy milk. This is the way they made their gravy. All right, so we put that in there and we're just going to start stirring. We've got our heat on about a 4 medium heat, and we're just going to stir this up until we get a gravy. We've got our gravy is come to a boil now, and we're letting it boil. We're going to let it reduce down just a little bit, because it's I think maybe that 2 cups of water was too much, but that's what the recipe called for. So I think I'm going to change that to maybe a 1.5 cups of water. But just like I say, bring it to a boil if you need to, and let it kind of reduce down. It's not going to be a thick gravy like milk gravy, but if you let it reduce down, it will get thicker. And we do have the biscuits ready, and y'all got to see these biscuits. And get this pan over here where you can see the, look how good that those biscuits look. They look delicious. Now I did put some butter on top of them and turn the broiler on, let them broil. And so they are ready and they look great. So we're just going to finish up the gravy here. Shouldn't be just another minute or two. And then we will make us a plate of biscuit and water gravy. So after we let the gravy reduce a little bit and we took it off the heat, and then it started to thicken up pretty nicely. So I want to show you what that gravy looks like now. Now it didn't make a lot, but you know, if you're feeding a bunch of people, you might double that recipe. But it's a nice thick little gravy, and I can't wait to get me some on a biscuit and give it a try. Now I did taste it, and the salt and the pepper and everything was perfect for me. So again, just remember, taste it before you serve it. Make sure your salt content and your pepper is where you want it to be. All right, so guys, back in the Depression time, if you were a poor man or a poor woman, this is going to be what your breakfast would have looked like if the hens were laying and you had some eggs. So no meat, no potatoes, just maybe a couple of eggs and some gravy biscuits. And so I'm ready to give this a taste and see how good it is. So y'all, before we try the gravy and biscuits, I want to just try a piece of this 3-ingredient drop biscuit. So I'm going to eat that first and just see how it tastes. That biscuit is delicious. 3 ingredients: butter, buttermilk, flour, no kneading, no cutting. Just take a spoonful, drop it in your pan, put it in the oven. Spread some butter on top of it when it's almost done. But those biscuits are got a little crunch on the bottom. They're super, super tender on the inside. And it's just an awesome, awesome biscuit. All right, so let's give the gravy a try now. So we've got our biscuit here. We've got some gravy on it, and we're going to try that out now. Mm-mm-mm. That gravy on those biscuits, out of this world. I've made gravy over the years, and I think I make a really good gravy. This gravy is right up there with everything that I make. And even though it's a dark, dark gravy, it doesn't have a burnt taste to it. But remember, when you're making your roux, you got to keep stirring, or you will have that burnt taste to it. But guys, I'm telling you, if I'd have been around back in the 50s and I would have got served this for breakfast, I'd have thought I was in heaven. I definitely wouldn't thought I was poor. I would have probably thought I was a pretty rich guy being able to have gravy and biscuits like this. So y'all, make this for your family, share it with your friends. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, hit that bell button if you haven't already. And we appreciate y'all being here so much. You just don't even know how much we appreciate y'all being here with us and watching our videos. And that's why we're going to keep making them for you. So y'all have a great one, and we will see you next time.